We're going to turn now to Jim McCaffrey from The Athletic, and I know your relationship with Alex Cora is pretty tight. You've been through a lot with him. You have a very different perspective on it because of how The Athletic writes your articles. It's sort of a take a step back, a little bit more in depth. And what I liked about what you wrote this week was that he is inheriting a team that is very different from the one that he left when he ultimately left this team last time.
Yeah, absolutely. You think back to September 2019 and what the team looked like at that point. And where they are at this, at this juncture and heading into 2021 and how much has changed. It's pretty remarkable over, the span of a year. There's only 17 players on their current 40-man roster are guys that he managed. So there's been a ton of turnover. The pitching staff, that's probably the first and foremost thing that you can think of. He had a rotation that had David Price on it when he left, when he was dismissed, when Cora was dismissed by the team. Chris Sale hadn't gone through Tommy John surgery. Eduardo Rodriguez was still healthy. So he's coming back to a team that's got a lot of question marks. Obviously, there's going to be guys that are added this winter by Chaim Bloom and his front office staff. But yeah, it's a very different looking team, a very different vibe around the team. They're coming off, the worst the worst year that they've had in decades record wise. So just I think the overall mood around the team is really needing a boost, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Red Sox wanted to bring Cora back, because they figured he's the guy that can bring a lot out of these players.
I reached out, did a Twitter poll, and I think you did as well, to sort of get people's feel about Alex being back. Most people are pretty happy to have him back. However, I felt that the minority was a bit more vocal in their comments about saying, cheaters shouldn't be allowed back. He's proven to be a cheater. Why do you think that Cora ultimately was able to convince the Red Sox brass that he was the right guy to be entrusted with this responsibility?
I think it goes down to the pre-existing relationships, and the players would, speak out over the course of the year of how much they missed him, his presence, just the way he was able to communicate and the way he is able to communicate with guys and just bring more out of them. We saw that with Rafael Devers in the 2019 season of how, he ended up with an MVP caliber year because Cora was pushing the right buttons with him. But he can work with a guy like Devers as well as he can work with a guy like JD Martinez, has been around for a long time and has his own routine, but he, can also press the right buttons with a guy like him. So I think that kind of spoke a lot to why they wanted to bring him back and what what he's able to do with this team, but how he can do that heading into 2021, kind of a year away from these guys and with everything so different with this team. I think obviously is the biggest question mark that we'll have to see if he can answer.
How might you think he will change? Because he's always been very forthright, approachable, honest. When you go through something like this, it's humbling. It's embarrassing. You kind of carry it like a scarlet letter. I think he's been pretty honest and forthright in saying that it has been that way for him, and he feels bad about how he embarrassed his family and how he embarrassed the Red Sox. How do you think he might change or be a different guy when he comes back to Boston this season?
Yeah, I think maybe those types of things of just being more, aware of the ramifications of some things, and maybe being more careful around the rules. I think one of the big things about this story is that a lot of people in the industry and sort of around baseball know and think that a lot of this sort of trying to get a one-up on the game itself is something that's pretty, prevalent throughout the game. It's just a matter of how far you take that, and he realized he took it way too far. I think, you get caught up in some of these things when you're in the moment and, obviously trying to win, and all these guys are competitors. And obviously he messed up and took this way too far. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just being more careful and mindful about some of these rules that are placed on them, and how strict and severe the punishment can be. And like you said, how embarrassing and shameful it is to have on your resume for the rest of your career. So I think that's kind of the biggest lesson. But by and large, I don't think he's going to change much else. He had success here. He obviously, the 2019 season wasn't as strong by any means as 2018. So I think he learned a lot of lessons that year, really, of just how to bounce back from a championship and how to manage a pitching staff that way, and what he did with the bullpen, and maybe not necessarily having a set closer, and realize that wasn't the best idea. So maybe they'll head into 2021 with a set closer. Those, I think, are things that he had time to sit and think about. And I'm sure he watched a lot of baseball, too, over the course of the year. So I'm sure he picked up some things here and there that he wants to try, or, would have wanted to try if he had a second second chance, and now he does. So yeah, I think by and large we'll see the same guy, but at the same time, maybe someone that's a little bit more mindful of the spotlight that's on him.
Good stuff on Cora. I want to turn the page a little bit, talk about Jackie Bradley Jr. Is this, in your estimation, window dressing? It seems oddly coincidental that the team had every opportunity to strike a deal with Jackie Bradley Jr. and his representatives for a very long time. And now, all of a sudden, they're beginning these conversations when he's on the open market. It almost seems like they're covering their butt a little bit to say, like, oh, well, we tried. What's your take on how realistic these negotiations are?
I think it's just a matter of the market itself. This is such a strange year for players kind of heading into free agency. This is obviously Jackie's first free agency, and his agent is Scott Boras. And we know Scott Boras and how he operates and sort of the kind of the strictness that he holds over the rest of the league, really, and just how much influence he has. So I think all those kind of factors play into things. I think Jackie left on good terms. He had a great career here, and I think he would like to come back if given the opportunity. But along the same lines of Mookie Betts, wanted to try to see what was out there on the open market. I know obviously Mookie ended up signing with the Dodgers before he hit free agency, but that was sort of Mookie's MO all along. And I wonder if if the pandemic hadn't hit and he hadn't gotten an offer from the Dodgers that he did, that maybe he would have done the same thing. So I think it's still sincere for the Red Sox and Jackie, and we'll obviously see where that goes from here. But they know what kind of player is, they know what kind of leader he is, and to bring him back, I think would be fans would appreciate that, because they really seem to want to give him a tribute at the end of the season, and of course they couldn't because of no fans in the stands. So having Jackie back here, I think wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing at all.
Jen McCaffrey from The Athletic, great to be talking baseball with you. We appreciate you joining us tonight.
Thanks so much.